Now we are live. Cool. Welcome everybody to another weekly stream for Subtle Asian Voices. Today we have my friend, my pledge brother, and colleague in the health profession, Dr. Andrew Chu. We're going to talk about dating as a doctor. A couple of housekeeping things that we're going to do. The first thing is a purpose. The purpose of today is to pick Andrew's brain about what it is like to date as a doctor. And then, of course, we like audience engagement. So, those of you who are tuning in and watching live, if you have questions, type it out in the chat. And then, occasionally, as Andrew and I are chatting, we will turn to the audience and poll some of those questions. Something that I'll always make sure to say is, dating is kind of a sensitive topic. So, if Andrew doesn't feel comfortable, we're not going to make him answer certain questions. So, uh, we'll see how that goes. I think that is it for housekeeping. Yes. So usually we have the interviewees introduce themselves, but today I'm actually going to introduce our special guest today using a post from Subtle Asian Dating. It's a fantastic post that actually triggered the impetus for this discussion today. So I know Andrew hasn't spoken anything yet, but let me just go ahead and start by doing an introduction for him. So I'm going to share my screen. Share. Here we go. All
Oh
right.
boy.
Here it is. Here it is. So, attention, ladies of SAD. Want to make your parents proud by marrying a doctor? Here's your chance to shoot your shot. Introducing Dr. Andrew True, who is in Miami, Florida, but willing to have a long distance relationship. He is Taiwanese. He is bilingual. He's 31 years old, but can be your sugar daddy as well. Height is 5'5", but think of that doctor's salary. And he's looking for a wholesome, loyal ABG worthy of being a doctor's wife. Hit him up on his IG, Little Chewy. Pros, he's a doctor, not in med school, not pre-med, a real doctor. Another pro is he's a doctor, will make your parents proud. Marriage material because doctor. Loyal is not gonna curse. If you cuff him, you lock the doctor's wife status. Wants a relationship, not a whatever fuck boy. Won't hit and run. Sometimes too nice. Will let you abuse him in a good way. Did not know that about you, Chewy. So tiny he could be your little spoon. Has big dick energy. Will let you show him who's boss. Do you love Superman? Superman because he looks like an Asian Christopher Reeve. And did I say doctor? So those are all the pros. Cons, only 5'5", but think of that doctor's salary. Will probably be lighter than you, so it could be a pro if you like to toss your man around the room. Con is a doctor, so sometimes he's busy and won't reply quickly. I know we're going to talk about that a little later. Tiny everything, only big where it matters, like his brain. Requirements, age is just a number as long as you're legal. Prefers Southeast Asian beauties but won't discriminate and must be willing to get to know him on a deeper level. Look at these amazing pictures. Look at this guy right here. Three girls around. There it is. That is the introduction. Okay, let me stop sharing real quick so we can go back to Chewy. Chewy, Dr. Andrew Chu. That is my introduction of you. What kind of what would you like to add?
Oh my God, I can't top that. I have no idea. It's got to be the best introduction I've ever had for anything. But hello, good afternoon, people, and Brian.
So I'm actually curious. I don't remember if we did talk about like the actual story because that I don't know if the audience saw it, but that post actually blew up on Subtle Asian Dating. It was, let me see,
It's got
1.2.
1,200 comments, and like over
Hello.
1,000 reactions on it.
Yeah. So it was a lot. Can you just briefly tell us like how that started and what's the story behind the post?
Long story short, it was basically two of my co-residents, two interns. Um, they're both Asian girls, and they just decided to one day type this up and put it out there, and that's basically how it came to be. I mean, they asked me for permission, of course, if they could do that, and I had no idea what it was. I didn't even know that this group existed until I was blasted out onto there. And then, next thing I know, it's up there. And the funny thing was, it happened. I think I was on a month of night shifts. So it was like 4 or 5 in the morning. All of a sudden, my phone blows up. I'm in the middle of seeing patients in the hospital, and then, when I get done at 7 a.m., I'm like, what the hell? I have like dozens of notifications on my Facebook. It's like the most activity I've ever seen. And then that's when I realized, like a couple weeks ago, the people, my co-interns were talking about doing this, and that's what it was. So I was very, very surprised, very surprised.
So you already have two audience questions here, one of which we'll get to later, so we'll save that, which is from Norman. Do you hide that you're a doctor to make sure the girl's not after your status? I know we might talk about that a little later, so we'll save that. But Daphne asked another question about how insanely full was your inbox?
It was crazy. I mean, as far as like the messages goes, maybe like a dozen or so, surprisingly. Um, but to be honest, I really didn't take this thing very seriously, and really kind of left most of the messages like unread or unresponded to. So, but there was like probably a good dozen or so.
Hmm. Was it pretty wholesome? Just curious, first messages?
Um, I mean, most of them were just kind of like, "Hey, what's up?" Or like, there were some that were a little bit more lengthy, like kind of like someone was like introducing themselves to me. Um, but yeah, I mean, nothing like inappropriate, nothing out of the ordinary that like someone wouldn't just come up to you and say to you in person. So
Fair
nothing
enough.
outrageous. Yeah.
Fair enough. I guess maybe we'll take one more before we move on from Norman. Says, any good prospects from that?
I wasn't the short answer is no. I didn't really go on there looking seriously. I mean, like I said, I was surprised that this even happened. And then when it did happen, I was just kind of like, well, I went along with some things and just to see what would happen, but I mean, no, not really.
Okay, okay. Well, let's move on to your next auction, which is basically this video. So, to kick it off, we're going to ask a couple of rapid fire questions that girls love to know about. So, we're going to ask, starting with your Myers Briggs. Andrew, what is your Myers Briggs?
Okay, so if I remember correctly, I was an INFJ. Um, and I think there's a website out there where they like classify you as like different like occupations or something based on it, and it said I was like an INFJ diplomat. Um, so yeah, but then I took it again today, this morning, and I got ENFJ, almost the same, but I guess they can't decide if I'm an introvert or an extrovert.
Hmm.
So
I think I've always considered you an extrovert.
that's interesting. I've always considered myself an introvert.
Hmm. Okay. Well, for the ladies out there, that's his Myers Briggs. Next rapid fire question is the Enneagram of Personality. Can you tell us about that?
Okay, I don't really know that much about this. I've seen it around, no idea what it is. Again, I tried to just kind of jump onto a website and take a quick quiz. I think it said I was a type 5 investigator, but I have no idea what that means. And I have no clue about this Enneagram stuff.
Okay.
But that's what it is. Yep.
For the girls out there, because I have no idea either. So that's just one of them. Next question, rapid fire question, is your love languages. What is your love language?
Um, so, of the 5 love languages, physical touch, words of affirmation, quality time, receiving gifts and acts of service. We were talking about this yesterday, I think, but it's definitely quality time. I love just sitting around, chilling with my friends, doing absolutely nothing. Um, and then the next one would probably be acts of service. Like I like doing things for my friends. I like it when friends do things for me. It's like an exchange of like doing nice things for each other. So, but yeah.
Okay, I need to Disclose this. So those are the rapid fire questions. Now let's talk about some more general questions. And then at the very end, I think that's where the fun questions will come in, where we talk very specific about dating as a doctor. I think we're going to get a little bit more deep with those questions. But moving on to more general questions. To find a perfect mate, we have some preferences. So first, tell me about your dating age preferences. What is the youngest you're looking for? And then let's talk about the oldest you're looking for. Let's start with the youngest, though.
Um, so I don't really have like an age preference in terms of like specific numbers. I would say, obviously nothing illegal. Let me just throw that out there. Um, but I think a lot of it would have to depend on like the level of maturity and the stage in life where people are at. So, for instance, you know, well, and probably if I had to set a hard limit, probably at the very least like 21. You know,
Okay.
that's still probably a little bit young, um, but I'd like to be able to go out with my whoever I'm with and grab a drink if that's possible.
Hmm.
Although it's not really possible anymore because Florida just closed down all the bars yesterday. But that's got to be a requirement,
Okay.
I guess. But you know, like I said, more importantly, it would probably be like the stage in life. It's kind of hard for me to connect with people that are doing undergrad stuff, doesn't really know like where they're at in terms of like their career or haven't figured out what they wanted. Um, something like that. If I were to give you a ballpark, like minimum would probably be like 24, 25. And I'm in my 30s, so yeah. Um, that would
Okay.
probably be below.
All right. Fair. Good answer. What
Yeah.
about the oldest?
Um, they can't be my mom's age. Uh,
Can we give a reference? Like what is your mom's age?
so my mom is approaching 70.
Okay.
Um, can't be that old. I'm sorry. I'll go out and have tea with them, but that's
Mm,
about the extent of it.
hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, probably again, it would probably be like what would really matter is if we're in the same stage in life. So I don't know, probably like kind of first starting out in their career, kind of still forming what path they want to lead into. But I'd say probably no more than 40. You know, I'm in my 30s, so, but I would still probably prefer someone who's around the same age as me or younger.
Okay. Very similar to me as well. Probably same
Yeah.
age or younger, but sometimes there's some nice hidden gems out there that I'd be open to. Like, someone's 55 and chill, it'd be cool. All right. Well, that's dating age. Now let's talk about dating ethnicity preferences. Do you have any preferences for ethnicity?
Um, I want to say no. I mean, I've looked at all ethnicities of people. I've never really been like, you know, I've never been at a point where I'm like, I think an entire type of people are unattractive. I've never been like that before. Um, but I will say that, you know, it is probably easier to date someone who is uh, culturally similar, values are similar, but that's not a requirement, you know. And even then, I would say, I mean, in America, like we all kind of have very similar cultures already. We're all American, so that's like something that I think is easy to get over. It'd probably be easier for me to date someone who's non Asian American rather than to date someone who is like from overseas Asian. You know what I'm saying? Like culturally, it's like that's kind of important, but it's not a deal breaker.
That's interesting. I think there's a topic we might talk about in the future about dating Asian Americans versus someone who is Asian but not from America. It's definitely a different culture. Okay. So, dating ethnicity is open to all, but prefer someone who probably jives with your culture or is the same culture as you. Okay. So, those are some general questions, girls that are paying attention, that keep that in mind. Now, let's talk about some social norms, because,
Sure.
sometimes girls are interested in that. Good to know if, the values that you hold. And we'll start with the very common question. Who pays on a first date, Andrew?
So I don't really find myself in a lot of situations where it's like a typical first date. Most of the time, I'm going out with friends, people who start out as friends, and I am a person who typically pays for my friends, even just like any friend. Um, so that's just my nature. Um, but I think if you're trying to ask, the kind of the deeper meaning of that question is, what does that say about someone if they if they offer to pay or if they don't offer to pay or like what, um, I've been giving that question a lot of thought since I've seen it pop up on your channel. And I think one of the things that it's important to think about is what are we ultimately asking with that question? Um, and what is the payment on the first date? What does that mean to each person? So, for instance, what I mean by that is it how is it a way for people to gauge like what they look at, how the other person views their finances? Like, is that similar to ours, or how freely they're generous or give out money, or or if they're just kind and like able to offer that kind of thing. Um, so for me, it would just be if you make an effort, great. But I don't expect anyone to do that. And even then, I think that would be a very small part of what I look at in someone. Like that alone doesn't make or break anything. But, it will influence, certain parts of how I look at someone. Like all of my friends are people who are very generous and always offer to pay. Maybe it's just an Asian thing. We all just kind of try and offer to pay for each other, and we don't really keep tabs on who pays what. Um, so, but the good thing is at least we don't fight over it like like our parents do or anything like that. So there's no need to fight, but I guess the gesture is appreciated.
Okay. So, just to add on to that, I don't think we actually talked about it much. What if a girl, you go on a first date or perhaps start as friends and then you start dating? What if the girl doesn't offer to pay at all and just, check comes and she just kind of looks at it for the first 5 dates? Does that change any perceptions on your part?
Um, I guess again, the question that I would want to know is why. Like, why would they do that? Um, and I don't know why someone would do that. I mean, there's a lot of things that we can guess about, but that would be the first thing that I want to know. Like, are you maybe not as financially well off? Are you incapable of doing so, or does that cause problems for you? And if that's the case, I have no issues with that. People are kind of embarrassed about not being in a place, they still want to go on dates, but they're not really in a place where they can pay. I mean, that's valid. I think that's okay. But, if people are just, you're capable and you're just not willing, like, I wouldn't look too highly upon that. But again, it wouldn't be a make or break. It would just be one of many factors that I would look at.
What just what's interesting about that is now that we bring up the topic, just made me think about something else with social norms. I'm very traditional. I have never thought that girls should pay within dates, multiple dates in relationships. I've just always been raised to think that guys take care of the females. I'm just a little bit more traditional in thinking. I think it's now over the years that my thinking has evolved a little bit to thinking where it's more equal and girls maybe should offer to pay. But I think it's a little, yeah. My thought and philosophy on it has changed a little bit. But
I think in many ways I'm still very similar to that like traditional viewpoint. Like that's why like I will always just be like, it's just expected that I will pay for something. And I have no issues with that. But
mhm.
yeah, I mean, it is 2020. Things are obviously more equal, and that's a very good thing. And so, at the very least for me, it's like if you make a gesture, an offer, if you're just if you just give it lip service, if anything, if nothing else, like that's already like more than I would ever expect. You know,
All right. Well, to the girls out there, if you get a chance to date Andrew, him to take you to the most expensive restaurant. And the
we're
guy.
going to McDonald's.
Okay, so there you go. There you have it. Kind of an interesting segue to the next question, though, is dating apps. So I think this is interesting because, as I recall, you don't use dating apps, and your experience with dating apps is very limited. Is that correct?
It is. I have on several occasions maybe downloaded Tinder like for a day or two just to see what it's like, but I've never really, you know, tried to invest my time and energies into making it anything serious. So my dating app is very limited experience. Dating app experience is very limited. But yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at with that.
Okay. I was say I was not. I was so into the conversation, I wasn't paying attention to the live chat. There's a lot of
Yeah, there's a
actually.
lot of questions. I'm like looking at my screen over here. And
Yeah. Let's take some from the audience real quick. So let's see here. Is there one that jumped out at you?
no, I mean I'm just looking at just a string of comments,
Oh
and
yeah,
they're just explaining like the enneagrams and stuff like that.
that's interesting. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
interesting. As their best. Oh yeah, mainly talking about the Enneagram. Any stories of doctors hooking up with each other or nurses in the closet?
I mean it's not uncommon. It's not as common as before, but it's not unheard of.
I've heard of stories in Miami about that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Uh, but so that's the next question too. Does that happen, or is that just from TV? So it is true.
I mean, I've never watched like Grey's Anatomy. I've only heard about it. Things don't happen like Grey's Anatomy from what I've heard about that show. But I mean, it is kind of inevitable that people who spend a lot of time together are in stressful situations together, can understand things together. They do end up getting together. Like there's a lot of people when I was in med school that ended up dating each other,
Hmm.
and so stuff like that.
So before we start jumping into the deeper conversations that we're gonna have, let's take that last one from Norman. In your experience, have any girls offered to pay? Actually, offered to pay?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay, that's good.
yeah.
That's good. Good. All right. So if you guys go on dates with Andrew, do try to offer to pay every now and then. That's good. All right. So now let's jump into some of the more specific questions, and we're probably going to go on a couple of tangents here. I think one of the first questions is going to be about just stereotypes about dating doctors. At least stereotypes that I have. And one of the first things is like everyone talks about, oh, find yourself a doctor. Why is likely because they make a lot of money. So my question to you is, are you worried about gold diggers? And how do you, if you are, how do you circumvent that, if anything?
Um, am I worried about gold diggers? Personally, I think yes. In the sense that I don't want someone who is just going to value me for the money bag that I am, or could be. I don't know. I guess. Um, so yeah, I mean, but again, there are people. I think there are people out there who they're okay with that. They're okay with having essentially trophy wives or trophy husbands or you know people who are enamored with their job and their title and the money that it brings. But I'm not one of those people. Um, And what was the second part? How do you circumvent that?
Yeah, if anything, then maybe not.
Um, I don't know. The answer that I would have is probably the generic answer that I'll have with, general advice with meeting people, you know, regularly is you get to know them and then you see what their real intentions are or what motivates them. Um, I think one of the things that I do find very attractive is probably people who are ambitious.
Hmm.
And I think that's something that you and I kind of share is that we like people who are like us. And that's not to say that people who are like us don't want to have like a ball spouse, but um, I think there needs to be more than that. There needs to be people who have their own dreams and have their own goals and want to do well on their own, regardless of who they end up with. And
But
if you end up with someone with a ton of money, like all the better. But at the end of the day, it's just a bonus.
true. But what if I can't keep a straight face? But what if that person was super ambitious at digging gold?
I respect the hustle.
There you
I
go.
respect the hustle.
Okay. All right.
You know,
We can move into a serious question now. So, it's a good segue because of your last statement you made. I think we're both attracted to people who are ambitious. So, I think the stereotype of dating physicians also is that there's usually not a lot of time. They're doing is studying, they're on call. So, the question is, as a physician, what do you think some of the challenges are in dating someone who is in your profession?
um, the challenges of dating someone in my profession. It's going to be, like you said, kind of the demands of the career. Not just in terms of the hours in the day, but the years of commitment. Um, and that's something that I think I've already run across in my lifetime. Even in my short time so far as in medicine, is that it takes a long, long time, and it's very, very draining to get into med school, to get through med school, to get into residency, to get through residency and fellowship, possibly if you're into that. And then after that, then maybe you're at a point where you can say, well, how much do I really want to work? And how much time do I want to commit to my life? And, there's always this question of lifestyle balance, depending on what specialty you're in and depending on what kind of contracts you can get within your specialty and things like that. So the challenge is always going to be putting up, essentially, for lack of better words, putting up with a doctor's BS. And by that, I mean all the demands that they have.
Hmm. Yeah, there's we both have stories we can probably share, but let's make the mood a little lighter for a second and just take an audience question, real quick, from Vang. Do you want children, and is that a deal breaker?
Do I want children? I think I am kind of indifferent on it. Like,
You don't want little chewies?
it'd be great. But at the same time, it's not the end of the world if I don't. So it's kind of a non-committed, middle of the road answer. I would like to, but I also recognize that if it just doesn't happen, it doesn't happen.
I didn't expect that answer. Okay. Another lighthearted question here, or maybe lighthearted, is I heard doctors have this stereotype that they are cheaters. Um, True or false? That's a hard answer.
It is. I mean, people in general have a stereotype of being a cheater,
Yes.
of being cheaters. Doctors in particular, I don't think are any more or less. There's probably studies on it, and I don't know, but I would think that it's about the same as any other high-strung job.
I
Um,
actually would say
yeah.
the stereotype is that doctors are more likely to cheat because they have clout and status, and they have the ability to. But I shouldn't say cheat. Play the field.
Yeah. I mean, okay, sure.
Play the field, not
Um,
cheat. I don't. I think. Yeah. Doctors are usually moral people that have values. They're not going to cheat, but they will
well, yeah,
more than likely maybe play the field, which is not necessarily cheating, just evaluating options. Hmm.
right. I will say that I think maybe where that stereotype comes from is, again, when you are in a high stress situation constantly for years and years and years on end, and you kind of just gravitate towards what's near you or what's or what's around you, and that's not an excuse by any means to do that. I mean, if you cheat, you're kind of a dirtbag, um, but maybe that's an explanation for why it is. I don't know.
Hmm. All right, we're gonna switch back into our zone real quick. Talking about challenges of dating a doctor. So I'm curious. Because you are so busy, tell me a little bit more about where in your day do you actually have time to date? Like, what does that even look like? Do you work? Um, let's use a typical office job, a 9 to 5, and then from 5 to 10 p.m. every weekday, and then just all weekends would be date time. Is that true for you? Like, what does that date time look like?
So for the past 2 years, I typically have worked close to about like 6 days out of the 7 a week. Um, uh, and it typically comes in chunks of 12. So like 12 days on and 2 days off. Um, Not always, but typically that's how it was. And then a typical day hours wise is I get up, depending on the day, depending on what responsibilities I have. Sometimes I have more, sometimes I have less. I have to get to work either by 6 or 7 a.m. and then I'm done typically around like 4. Sometimes earlier, sometimes later. Um, so that's been my life for about 2 years.
When you sleep,
When do
usually,
I sleep?
yeah, usually when do you sleep?
Um, I try to go to sleep by 12.
Mm.
That's like my hard, like I gotta be asleep by then. At the very least, that gives me about 5 hours of sleep. Some days I come home and I just pass out until the next day. So, you imagine I come home like 5 or 6 o'clock. I pass out until 5 a.m.,
Okay.
So
So
it
there
just
is
depends.
some wiggle room in there where you can, fit in a couple of these girls that want to go to sushi restaurants and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, and I do have, quite a few co-residents at my program who have been,
Dating?
dating dating a lot, but for whatever reason, I just haven't found the time in my day to do that. So I don't know.
Mm. Okay. Well, let me just take a gander here at the, oh my goodness, the audience questions. Um, yeah, I feel like everyone wants to ask that question, and I know it's a question that I was going to ask later. Norman asked it earlier, and now Elving is saying the same thing. Do you disclose that you're a doctor right away, or do you let it just pop up in conversation? So, what do you think?
I don't advertise that information, but I also don't hide that information. And see, the good thing about my specialty as well is if I tell people, like in general terms, like, hey, I work with crazy people because I'm a psychiatrist, most people don't even really realize that that's a medical doctor. They think like I'm some kind of therapist, like I sit around and people lay down on the couch and stuff like that. But they don't associate that with being in the hospital, rounding on patients, adjusting their medications, and all that kind of stuff. Um, so yeah. So the short answer is no. I don't tell people that right up front. But you know, the question inevitably comes up: what do you do? Depending on who's asking it, I'll first say, oh, I work in the hospital, and if it's someone that like I feel like I'm going to talk to for a long time and get to know them, then yeah, I'll say, yeah, I'm a doctor, I'm a psychiatrist, things like that.
and we can jump into this for just a little bit because I don't think this is the main area I wanted to focus on. But clout is an interesting thing, and I know we've talked about this in the past, which is you have one of the primary things that all parents everywhere tell their daughters to go after: marry a doctor, right? And the bigger question is about clout. Like, you have the ability to use clout to your advantage. Sounds like you don't, but I don't know what the question really is here. But what are your thoughts on that? I mean, you could, and would you ever think about it, like advertising it to the point where you can get some really solid girls
Um,
advertising your clout? And maybe I'll start real quick. Maybe I'll start real quick. Um,
sure.
and I'll just say that I have done that in the past before, and it was, and I've compared it, just to see, does it make a difference if you advertise certain things that might be more attractive in status and clout. I've tried it before, didn't like the feeling at all because it's like the girl's not interested in you, they're interested in certain things like a particular status, like a physician title, or a certain amount of money you make. I don't like that feeling. So I don't because of that personal experience. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I think the same way. What are you ultimately trying to achieve by telling people that you're like your title? You know, I don't think I'm any different as a doctor than I was before I was a doctor. It just meant that I had to go through many, many years of hell. Um, but fundamentally, I think I'm still the same person. And I don't want someone who just wants me because of my title. I mean, if they want to, if that isn't a way for them to want to get to know me, and then from there they find out that, like, hey, I'm actually, a decent person and not an asshole, then sure, like it can be a conversation opener or a starter. But I think it's kind of it's not a very good thing when that's the reason why someone wants to be with you.
Okay. I know we're gonna, because I really want to jump into the deep conversation that I'm about to start. But before we do that, we'll take one more audience question, and then we're also encourage the audience who's watching. Do make sure you give the video a like. It does help the algorithm a lot, so make sure you do that. We'll take that last question and we'll jump into our deep conversation. Question is from Daphne. In your current stage in your journey as a doctor, do you see yourself being able to maintain a serious relationship?
So that's actually a really good question. And I that's still a pretty solid no. Um, you know, Kind of just to briefly say, I was in a very long relationship throughout a good chunk of my med school time. And I think a lot of the reasons why, I mean, part of the reasons why that I think it didn't work out was because of the commitment that I had to give to that. And it kind of, stress does a lot of things to how a person is. And that's not to excuse bad behavior at all. Um, but from that point on, I still, have this mentality of, I'm not at a point where I can ensure that those stressful times are over, or that I have the time and the energy and the commitment myself to give to someone else. And so, um, I don't think that I can maintain a serious relationship unless someone really, really wants to make it work with me. And like, that's kind of difficult, I think, to ask of someone. Um, Also, because most people just don't know what that entails. And even if you do, it's different once you're in the middle of it. So no, I don't think I am at a place where I can maintain a stable relationship.
Well, that's a perfect segue actually to our deeper question. which is basically what you're looking for in a girl. And I guess I can add a little bit of my own personal experience very briefly, and that is essentially that my last three relationships ended because I was looking for a certain type of girl, and that girl needs to be able to match my ambition in the sense that they will likely not receive as much time with me relative to other people they're dating. So, I have a particular girl or preference that I'm looking for. So, my question to you is, you never know when the right person might come around, right? Let's say someone does come into your life that meets all your criteria, you vibe really well. So the question is, what are you looking for in a girl that might actually change your mind about pursuing a serious relationship? What are those qualities and attributes you're looking for?
I mean, so kind of the things that I think I've touched on already is going to be, maturity, stage of life, but in addition to that is kind of what I just said is going to be uh, commitment and knowing what they're getting themselves committed into, um, which is a lot to ask for someone. Um, because again, like I don't think that I'm in a place where I can devote a lot of my time and energy to someone, and it would be unfair to have someone to do that if they don't really know what they're getting themselves into. So I don't know if that answers your question of basically I guess what I'm looking for, but someone who essentially, like I said earlier, is willing to put up with my BS, all of it.
Okay. Um, According to your subtle Asian dating profile, it says you're looking for a wholesome ABG. So wholesome.
Again, I had nothing to do with authoring this article, but sure,
Uh,
all ABGs are welcome.
so I guess how do you evaluate if someone's the right fit for you? I feel like that's a very difficult thing to look for. Like, how do you, like, let's say you go on a date, right? And you're talking to a girl that potentially has mutual interests. How do you say, are you willing to put up with my BS? Like, how do you evaluate if someone's the right fit?
I'm going to say something that has become kind of unconventional, or maybe I just think that. I don't know if that's actually true in our current time, but it's time. I mean, there's no other way around it. I can't convey that in one date or five dates. It's going to be something that people experience over time. And that's true of like almost everything, like whether or not that's compatibility, understanding the demands of my life outside of a relationship or, things like that. Like it just takes time. Um, and I don't really know if there's any other way to figure that out besides time.
Hmm. Okay. We have another audience question that just popped up.
Oh, yes.
When was the last time you were on a date by Daphne?
I don't remember.
Okay.
Yeah.
Andrew's been a super busy guy. Okay. Well, I feel as though we haven't been able to dig deeper into this whole thing because I know it's a very near and dear topic to both of us on here. But how do you ask the question? Um, Let me ask you this then, because
Sure.
the pathway to a physician is quite long and tedious, and my understanding is that you're still in training. What does your pathway look like uh, now versus when you're fully done with your career? Do you think you'd be more busy? So, two questions. One is like, what's the duration that you kind of have left? Like, what does that look like? And the second question is like, how do you think once you're done, the time will be? Would it be more time to, let's say date versus now? So two questions.
So, how much time do I have left? Um, so, I am nearing my end of second year of residency.
Mm-hmm.
Residency for me is 4 years. So,
Mm-hmm.
I'm halfway through. Um, so, in my early 30s, I'm halfway through residency.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Um, and then after that, I might pursue further subspecialized training, which is fellowship, which may be another year at least. Um,
So 3 more years.
could be, or could be more, could be less.
It's
But
a long
at the
time.
very least, two. Yeah, at the very least, two more. And so the question then becomes, um, I guess, what's the difference once I'm done? Um, and the good thing is the specialty that I chose can be almost anything. I mean, I'm not, going to be stuck in an OR like a surgeon.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so psychiatry is very, very flexible, very, very family friendly. It's shot up over the recent years as a favored specialty among future physicians, precisely because more people nowadays are prioritizing having a lifestyle career. Um, and honestly, that's probably one of the reasons why I chose to do psychiatry as well, other than the fact that I also love crazy people. Um, but but yeah, so I mean, once I'm done, I could work like part-time hours
Huh.
and still make a decent living. Or I could work my ass off and have multiple jobs, and work 7 days a week, 12-hour days, work nights, you know. It just depends. And I don't know the answer to that question yet about what I want it to look like because I don't know how much I still where that balance is going to be for me, especially now currently as someone who's mostly just invested all of my time and energy into my training and trying to do as best as I can. I don't really have any other commitments and I don't really have any reason to set aside any time to do anything else. Um, so
But what I hear is that there's a good chance that once you graduate, you're a doctor,
yeah,
make a lot of money. You can work part time and still make a lot of money. So
that's true.
girls out there, this is a pretty good investment here. You got some, yeah. Keep in mind, Andrew. I think we shout out the IG earlier on, so make sure you hit hit up Andrew.
My very inactive Instagram, yes.
Okay, okay. But yeah, I think that's great. Being in that field, it sounds like you have a lot of time to invest into relationships if you want to. So that's good. A couple of other audience questions came in, so we're going to take some of those. And let's see. This one's from Norman. How is a girl going to be able to commit to you without being able to give that time to her?
Now, how is a girl going to be able to commit to you without I'm assuming there's a you without me being able to commit the time to her. I'm guessing that's the
Yeah,
question.
that's how I interpret it.
Um, it's unfair, straight up. It's unfair, and that's probably honestly one of the big reasons why I just haven't really um, pursued it because I know that it's unfair. It's just there's just no other way. Um, and I think I don't know if we've brought it up during this discussion now, but that's something that we talked about before. Is it's either going to be I'm either going to be with someone who will need to take a back seat in terms of their career to mine, um, or I will be with someone who is equally as ambitious as I am, and it will just be a matter of us being on equal levels and putting up with each other, for lack of better words.
Yeah, I don't think we brought it up so far, but that makes sense. So someone who can complement you, not have as stressful of a situation, or someone that's equally ambitious and independent.
Right. Or like we said the other in a different conversation, if I happen to be the one doing the gold digging, I mean, I will for sure just back off and take a back seat. But um, being that I'm in the position that I am, where most people, of course, the Asian dream is either be a doctor or date a doctor or both. It's like, well, what's higher than that at that point? So the options aren't a whole lot.
It just made me think like there was a time I was talking to a cardiovascular surgeon, and the first thought was like, I'm gonna be a trophy husband.
Right. Like if that were me, I would just be like, all right, like
Yeah,
I will take a step back and be part time, and you can go, perform heart surgery.
there you go. Yeah, I'll take care of the kids. I'll cook the
Right,
food.
right.
I'm good. All right, so let me touch on a deeper topic because you just kind of mentioned it about being unfair. I've had mixed thoughts about that. I think in many of the relationships that I've had, I've ended them because I think it's unfair. And I think the criticism that I get is that is it really fair to end a relationship just because you think it's unfair? Because I have, but the criticism is like, if a female or a partner is willing to put up with your BS, for lack of better words, is it really unfair if they're willing to go through the lows and the hardships with you? Do you think it's unfair to just break it with them?
I think if we're talking in general terms here, then yes, I think that's unfair. I think it's unfair for you to make that decision for them.
Okay.
I guess would ultimately be what it comes down to. But I don't. It depends on each unique situation.
I mean, I would say that it's unfair for someone to make a decision for someone else, but I've done it 3 times now, so
Yeah. Well,
so actions speak louder than words. But okay, let's move on to a lighter topic, lighter question here. Let's because we have 5 minutes left as well. Let's ask a question again from Norman. At this stage, would you rather just hook up?
no, I'm not. I'm not that kind of person.
Good guy, good answer. See, wholesome guy here, ladies. Andrew is someone to cuff. So, okay. Let's see. Daphne said,
I'm not trying to catch anything that I'm treating in the hospital.
"There you
So
go."
you know, lots of things you can't cure.
Exactly. So, uh, he's a wholesome guy, ladies. Daphne says, "Hopefully, you have time for yourself at some point for rest." Norman says, "Do you think this time sacrifice has been worth it in respect to your personal life?"
Oh, that's a loaded question. Um, the the real answer is I don't know. The answer that I tell myself is yes, if that makes sense. It has to be worth it because I've done it, and that's what I got to go with. There are a lot of everybody makes sacrifices in their life. I think that's not unique to being a physician. Um, there's lots of very high strung careers, lots of very demanding things that people have in their lives going on. Um, so the sacrifices, I hope they're worth it, but I don't know.
Hmm. Okay. Moving to another question. There's a lot that's loading up here. We're trying to wrap up, by the way. We have 3 minutes left, but we're continuing on with the audience questions since they're so engaged. Another question here is how do you balance your expertise and trying not to psych-analyze the girl?
So, I say this joke to a lot of my friends and a lot of people that I meet nowadays is I don't get paid to do that. Like, you're not paying me to analyze you, so why would I do it? It takes time and it takes effort and it takes energy. And the last thing I want to do when I'm at work is think about work. Um, Now, does it happen like unintentionally? Like, sure, of course. Like, as I'm talking to any person, I'm probably in the back of my mind just by training alone, I'm already thinking of like, a million things. But I don't actively try and think about that. Um, when I'm not in a clinical setting. I think that's just kind of one, it's not very productive, and two, it's just kind of unfair. Um, it's similar to, I think, I've seen a lot of other like YouTube doctor personalities where, OBGYNs get asked that about, sexual stuff. Like, you don't think about that kind of stuff. It's very clear cut. Like there's work and then there's personal life, and it's like it doesn't mix. Um, but yeah.
It's a good split. Okay. Um, Another question: do you have issues setting boundaries between what you do Oh, I guess that technically you answered that. Yes, Andrew does a pretty good job of splitting that.
I try.
Daphne, there you go. Daphne says, "Why can't you and your partner both be in the spotlight and just be a power couple?" I think we did say that's okay. We can do that. Andrew was wanting either or. One being that she compliments you, probably doesn't have as demanding of a job, or a power couple, essentially, that probably
Yeah,
has equally demanding.
it needs to make logical sense. I guess at the end of the day is what I mean. Like, if I'm earning more, then the my career will obviously take precedence over yours, or it could be vice versa. Like in your cardiovascular surgeon example, like, I mean, I'm not a cardiovascular surgeon, so I will gladly take a backseat to that. So, it just depends on what the demands of the relationship or the family asks for.
Okay. Uh, Interesting. I was trying to make a comment about this earlier, but I couldn't figure out how to segue into that comment. But it looks like Norman's just gonna say it. Does a girl need to love Star Wars? And he makes that comment because you have Yoda in your background.
Uh, no, especially not after the last three movies that came out.
Ah,
I know it's a
ah,
disappointment.
ah. That's not
I'm,
Baby Yoda though.
no, that's not. That's just a regular Yoda with a Santa hat.
Yeah, I like Baby Yoda. Okay. Maybe one or two more questions left, and Brittany has a question here. Where do you go to meet girls?
Uh, I don't know. I mean, out and about, friends of friends. I don't know.
Do
I
you have
don't
a
really,
preference where to meet girls usually?
not really. I don't think. I think I'd mostly meet new people through friends of friends.
Hmm,
Yeah.
okay. Because it's obvious. I don't know if Brittany was around earlier, but Andrew here doesn't use dating apps because girls seek him out. He doesn't need to go seek out girls.
Okay.
Girls
All right.
seek him out.
Now you're just putting words in my mouth.
Well, no, that's just coming from me. That's what I think is that, girls will proactively search for doctors and go and find you.
Or,
But
they'll proactively look up your YouTube videos if you're YouTube famous.
there you go. Okay, I think that is it. Since we are at the hour mark, do make sure, because I only see 5 likes in the video. If you have not given this video a like, make sure you give a like to this video so more people can see it. Algorithm likes that, and I think we can start to wrap up. What do you think of the conversation? Did you have fun?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is. I think I like what you got going here.
Hmm.
I think I've told you this before. It's interesting. Like we talk about this stuff all the time whenever we get those rare chances that we get to talk. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if people don't get a chance to ask these questions or don't have a chance to just talk about these kind of things with people that they know about. But I think it's cool. I mean, I'm always open to sharing whatever for what it's worth. I don't think my opinions matter much, but if you're asking for it, there it is.
He's so modest. He's like the perfect catch, girls. Um,
Oh my gosh.
all right, we're gonna wrap it up. All right, thanks to everyone that has been participating. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you, Chewy, Dr. Andrew Chu over here, for jumping on and spending an hour of his busy day with us. And see y'all next time.
All right. Take care.
Ended.